This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. It is pretty crazy to live within a world where cancelled games are now coming out. Usually when a title is canned, we are not going to be hearing about that title ever again. But here we are with 6 Days in Fallujah out now, and it's been in early access for about a year. It would appear that this title seems to be progressing well, adding new content and even starting to feature its campaign missions too. I was interested in the co-op mode, but really diving into the promised single player was something that really interested me about the entire thing. While there are only 2 campaign missions out now, this hopefully represents a good taste of what will continue to come with more missions added on later. As far as it pertains to this title, I really like what it has to offer so far, and it's definitely one that should be talked about more.
The invasion of Iraq began with shock and awe. Within weeks, Saddam Hussein was defeated. The Iraqi army was disbanded, and out of the chaos that followed, an insurgency was born. The center of this insurgency was a 2,000-year-old city on the Euphrates called Fallujah.
Fallujah is just down the road from Baghdad, and so it's a community where a lot of the generals live, and with Baghdad being in disarray, Fallujah was just going nuts, and it turned into just a hornet's nest.
On March 31st, 2004, a convoy of Iraqi civilians carrying kitchen equipment took a wrong turn onto Highway 10, the main road through the center of Fallujah.
Now I gotta give a nod to some of the marketing to this title. Something I really loved about seeing this from these developers is how they would call out other historical tactical first-person shooter games that have not really made anything in those series for a long time. For example, they called out Rainbow Six, and the last mainline entry was Siege, and this is just used now as a platform for multiplayer stuff. We haven't had a real Rainbow Six game with a single player since Vegas. Man, do I miss the Vegas games. Then they also called out Ghost Recon as well. In fairness, we have had a few titles in that series, and while the last one, Breakpoint, had a bunch of problems at launch, it did eventually get much better later on. But the marketing point still stands. Here, the 6 Days in Fallujah developer is trying to bring it back, and after my experience with it, it definitely does. Playing the campaign missions made me miss those other games, and here I am left with a feeling of being grateful that these developers went in this direction for this title.
Reaction was insane. People were very upset across the country. Very, very upset. Demanded some action to be taken. Demanded it.
Within days, the U.S. government orders thousands of Marines into Fallujah to neutralize militants hiding among the city's 300,000 residents. The battle had begun.
So how does 6 Days in Fallujah actually play? Well, it's a first-person shooter, but it has a bunch of little things to contribute to that realistic style that the game is going for. There's these little things that I really like. For example, you can't see how much ammo you have left in your magazine. You need to hit a button to check how much you have left. And trust me, in the middle of a firefight, you can find yourself trying to fire and yet having no bullets coming out. It's another thing that you need to check that enhances the intensity. You cannot go it alone as well, which is why when you're playing by yourself and in the campaign, you have access to your squad. The controls of your squad allows for a lot of options, and it's done in a way that makes it very easy to use. You can opt to have them breach, go to different positions, suppress, and more options. Your AI does seem to be competent enough, and will generally kill the enemy pretty well too, while the mixture of giving your squad commands and then partaking in the shootouts yourself, it even reminded me a bit of the Band of Brothers games as well, but in a modern setting. The entire thing has this realistic and authentic tone to the experience, while in a level you feel transported there. It sort of allows us players to get a glimpse of maybe how it was to be in those battles. Yes, the game is still very entertaining, and holds the gravity of the real conflict done very well. I don't think I will ever grow tired of clearing buildings. It feels dangerous and very intense. For most of them, you won't have these large shootouts, but rather high tension, and then bursts of action. You need to take it slow, be calculated, and you're not running and gunning here. You even need to pull down on the trigger to do some basic aiming, with the options for iron sights too. I really like how you can lean as well. This is greatly needed in these smaller buildings, but while you are in there, you have no idea where the enemy is. One thing that stood out to me was how dark the inside of these buildings actually are. You need to rely on your flashlight to really help you out in those situations. You cannot take many hits before you need to heal or even be revived by your allies. You need to keep an eye on your squad mates too. If you happen to die during a mission, you will then assume the role of another member in your squad. I really like this mechanic. It's almost like your squad members act as lives in a way. The documentary style cutscenes are a true highlight. You get first-hand account from the soldiers there along with some Iraqi journalists. This adds a tremendous amount of gravity to these missions and situations. It helps to provide that context of these very real events. The cutscenes are really put together very well. So much so, I hope we get the full uncut interviews as maybe unlockables in the full release. This game kind of reminds me of what the original Medal of Honor was trying to do back in the day, providing an entertaining game while respecting those that were there and fought. I feel the same level of respect while playing 6 Days in Fallujah. I was really rooting for this game before the game even came out, but until you actually play the game, you never really know what direction it's gonna go in. And after spending some time with this title, I can say that I really like what they were able to accomplish here. It is still in early access, so there is some jank too. I have seen a few graphical glitches along with the enemy AI being pretty dumb at times, and one thing I found very odd was the very long load times for some of these missions. My guess is that most of the stuff will get cleaned up as it continues to get updated. Something I found really interesting and a bit of a shame was how the big media wanted this game cancelled. When I first saw this game essentially being revived, there was everyone from the bigger media outlets to bigger personalities as well, even developers coming out and speaking against 6 Days in Fallujah. It would seem that a shooter focused on real events is what was too much for some of these people and they had to speak out against it. Honestly, I found all of this terrible. Many were attacking the game, throwing out unfounded claims that you really couldn't even determine from the trailer footage. Everything we saw was more teaser-like stuff, a promise of what potentially the developer could deliver in 6 Days in Fallujah. To attack the game as being more insensitive, or worse by some of the other haters, really didn't have any substantiation. But again, especially for a certain group of hive-minded individuals and the media people, once you are on the hit list, they want it gone. Oddly enough, the campaign to try and hurt this game before it even came out didn't work at all. Then when the game came out in early access last year, I didn't see any of these people coming out of the woodwork to attack the game again, maybe because what was provided was pretty good. And as the game stands now, I think Fallujah has their heart in the right place, and I really like how they are going about their title. We need more tactical-based first-person shooters. I do love my Call of Duty action, but here with Fallujah, it's more tactical-like stuff than action movie type of thing. Fallujah is immersive in a different way. It makes the game feel incredibly fresh and absorbing. The documentary-style campaign is great. I do question if the campaign would benefit from more characterization while you are in the mission, but the mix between the gameplay and the documentary-style cutscenes mixes very well and sets that real tone very well. I like what I have experienced so far, and I think more people should be talking about this game. My guess is that it will get a much bigger boost when the full release is out sometime next year. I recommend it, and keep an eye out on this one. Have you played 6 Days in Fallujah? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.